So now we're going to talk about the Gilded Age, okay? Basically, right after the Civil War, the robber barons, which are these big evil businessmen, took over, evil depending on your point of view. Some people call them captains of industry because they were the men that were guiding the economic ship of the United States. But anyway, we moved to an era called the Gilded Age, where America looks amazing from the outside. Just the financial growth, the industrial growth looks amazing. But the bad part about it is that there are still things that are rotten. All the politicians are taking money from the businessmen, and they're allowing the businessmen to basically do whatever they want to during this time. So we have the super rich getting even richer, and we have the poor people that are struggling to get by, making about $1 a day for a 12-hour day. So after the Civil War, the Gilded Age began. Massive political corruption as political machines controlled cities, states, and federal government. Economically, the business growth led to an increase in lavish spending by the ultra-rich, these robber barons or captains of industry. Individuals controlled large financial empires. The biggest of all was John D. Rockefeller, who is the creator of a company called Standard Oil. Now, the reason why they called it Standard Oil is because each bottle of his kerosene was the same. If you bought it in Louisiana, it's the same product as if you bought it in New York City. It's standard. And we were going through a really rough patch in the early Gilded Age where refiners and manufacturers were actually adding gasoline to the kerosene to stretch it out and to increase their profits. But those gasoline tainted kerosene bottles would blow up your lantern and cause house fires. So when John D. Rockefeller offers a safe, consistent product, everybody bought from him. And with everybody buying from John D. Rockefeller, he now had a monopoly. So he also invented the trust company. He tried to buy out his competitors. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But in most cases, he didn't even have to buy your company. All he had to do was get you to trust him to run your company for you. So a trust company is when a bunch of companies act as if they're one company and they together form a monopoly. So the trust company allows him to control but not own several smaller oil companies. Through the use of trusts, Rockefeller engaged in horizontal, which means side to side, like the horizon, horizontal consolidation. Since he controlled most of the oil market, he could force out smaller companies, creating a monopoly. The word trust became synonymous with the word monopoly. So if you say trust company, you really mean monopoly. If you say monopoly, you basically mean trust company. The second most powerful robber baron was Andrew Carnegie. Okay, Carnegie, if you're American. So he created Carnegie Steel, which was later renamed U.S. Steel under J.P. Morgan once he bought it. He invented something called vertical integration. See, to make steel, you need a few things. You need coal, you need iron, you need steel smelters, which is basically a factory where you melt the steel down and form it into beams or whatever you want to do, nails or whatever. And John D. Rockefeller not only bought the factories, but he bought the coal mines. He bought the iron mines. He built railroads to get the coal and the iron from the mine to the factory. He built stores to sell his steel out of. And so he bought or built everything in the chain that it took to make his steel products. And that is called vertical integration. It allowed him to cut out a bunch of middlemen and to reduce the cost. Eventually, Andrew Carnegie is going to have the cheapest steel in the world, and it's going to be the best steel in the world at the same time. J.P. Morgan is an investment banker and helps to create financial capitalism where you loan money to businesses and those businesses make a profit and then you get paid off. Well, one of his biggest purchases, actually his biggest purchase, was Carnegie Steel. And then he turned it into U.S. Steel, which became the largest business in our entire country. Cornelius Vanderbilt is the New York Central Railroad. He organized railroads in the Northeast. So Vanderbilt had more railroads under his control than any other robber barons. And not only that, folks, he controlled the most important, which means the most profitable railroads in the country. Everything that went from Chicago to New York was owned by Vanderbilt. And because of that, he had a monopoly. One more robber baron that's not on here is E.C. Knight. E.C. Knight was the sugar refining robber baron. Every grain of sugar that went into the United States was refined by E.C. Knight, and therefore he dictated large portions of food prices, and he was able to make a lot of money doing that. All right, the Gilded Age saw the emergence of industrialists who were perceived by some as ruthless and aggressive. These industrialists were negatively referred to as robber barons, okay? Now, I've seen the opposite of this question. If they say these industrialists were positively referred to as, that would be captains of industry. So you got two choices. Robber baron is negative, captain of industry is positive, okay? All right, next one. Which sentence best explains the reason for the name the Gilded Age? Okay, gilded means layered with fake gold, by the way. And it's going to be this one. This doesn't explain the reason for the name, but it explains the Gilded Age. It's kind of a poorly written question. The business growth led to an increase in lavish spending by the wealthy while poor people starved.